Hello, my name is Delphina Bailey Nichols, and my birth name was Shantae Monique Privet. I was born November 29th, 1984, to April Michelle Privet, also known as April Michelle Cuther, and also Kevin Randolph, the son of Elvia Allen and Thomas DeGrace, who also known as Tomas de Grasa, and of Cabo Verde. And my mother's parents are Antoinette Cecilia Baker, born to Bernice Privet and Anthony Privet, who are descended from the Bennett's Creek Reservation. And my mom's father, that's Oliver Cuther. Family name also known as Kaiser or Kaiser. And he's descended from Hattie Lee. And Ollie Sr., who's one of his parents was white. His father was white from the Kaiser royal family, and his mother is a biracial Seminole named Dora from Hialeah, Florida. Now, and so that's the ancestral part of what I'm doing. Okay, and this is my next installment for Elul of 2020, which is a pretty big deal. So, I wanted to say that in family court for my children, I built a rock-solid court case with more than enough information to have my case dismissed, so that I could have left with my children and gone to my mother in Georgia or another family member. And a police officer from outside of from outside of Kings County, California, she was in the Hanford courthouse October 11th of 2017, when I was allowed to set foot in court for the very last time. She was a witness to the fact that none of the charges that they used to put me into a cage is true. She's a law enforcement officer. She was there. She waited outside the building to see if I was going to make it outside. And I left her phone number with my biological mother, and her number might still be in my biological mother's cell phone. In addition to that, I was told that an attorney spoke with my mother and told my mother that I did an excellent job of presenting my cases in court, and I paid for that by spending 1 year in jail. I also had pictures, in addition to my notarized documents and forms that I filed in the courthouse. And I believe that's gone. I think they threw all that in the trash. Now, in regard to the forced financial instability and countless civil rights violations, which all originate with Dr. Andrea Lays outside of California, at All True Hospital in North Dakota, Dr. Andrea Lays, she started it. She surgically removed my clitoris without my consent, bullied me and harassed me, and started this whole process. California continued the process of continuation of abuse, not continuation of care. And I just wanted to say that during this whole process of civil rights violations, medical malpractice, and legal malpractice, it spans multiple states. And Dr. Andrea Lays' employer, All True Hospital, called my mother and told her that no state within the 50 continuous states of America would take my case in court. the amount of money that the federal government paid in order to support the illegal adoption of my children was $1,194,000 total, if I'm not mistaken. The CAPTA program, which is spelled CAPTA, it pays $8,000 a month for each child removed from their home. But and there's also a $100,000 cash bonus that's paid out when the illegal adoptions are finalized. So, $8,000 a month. I had 3 children. So that's $24,000 a month that the federal government paid out for a period of 3 years. It was 3 or 4 years. And then with the $100,000 cash bonus for the adoption of each child, that's about $1,194,000 that the government paid out to get this done. And they do this to thousands of mothers who are college educated or otherwise very healthy physically, with little or no protection from their family and community. And here's the deal. The women on drugs, the pedophiles, the people from the really chaotic, diseased, unhealthy homes, they get their kids back easily when they follow the programs. The healthier mothers don't. They don't get their kids back if they're unprotected, and a lot of times they have no rights. No human rights, no civil rights. And the reason for that is that America follows an approach to eugenics, which is very similar to what Adolf Hitler used. And Adolf Hitler, the mass murderer, he stated publicly that many of his policies were learned from America's government, and that he was putting it into practice to see how well it would work for his country. And so one of those practices he learned from America was the practice of putting zero pressure on the men to marry women, to marry young women. And of course, young people have needs, so children are still going to get born anyway, and they just send the children to foster homes and state-run group homes. And their goal was just to produce more healthy babies to serve in the Nazi army. The long-term health and benefit of the mother is no concern. The long-term health and benefit of the child is marginally a concern. It's a trauma to the baby as well. But as long as the child can still obey orders and function in their job, it's not an issue. And so this is what they would do. Just set it up where the men could just produce more healthy babies and then send them to other families, send them to state-run homes to keep the army supplied with more quality warriors, Aryan warriors. And there were a lot of white women who were severely traumatized by that policy. Like, very, very severely traumatized. And what America's following the same policy as the Nazis for building and maintaining a sizable army with, better quality men in it. But the catch, though, is that they're not just doing this with Aryan babies. They're doing it with black babies and Native American babies, too. They're doing this to colored children and colored mothers, even though that's not our culture. And they force that on us because we live here. And then, if you've been involved without your consent in programs like MK Ultra or MK Delta, then you're really fucked. Because then you have an exceptionally high probability that your children are all going straight to foster care because you're one of the allegedly genetically hybridized mothers. So it don't matter if you're dark skin, you're light skin, whatever. If like you're already at an exceptionally high risk if you're healthy, and they know your family community's not going to protect you. But then if you're in MK Ultra, MK Delta, and you're not one of the specially chosen white women and if you're not one of the specially chosen foreign black women who's not born here and married to a white man, then you're pretty much guaranteed to have all your children taken. And in my case, my ancestry DNA test yielded that some of my DNA is unrecognized or unidentifiable. I come from the rare blood type B, just like I come from the rare blood type B. And there were some things that were done to me without my consent. I had several markers that predators typically look for. And when they're looking for people to involve in specific government programs without their consent and also without pay. So, and overall their goal is to take children from women like me and to spread them out to different communities and different families so that they can imprint on to people who are not like their mother. It doesn't matter whether it's a white woman with unidentifiable or unrecognized DNA or a colored woman like myself with unidentifiable, unrecognized DNA. It don't matter. They take children from us and they spread them out so that they're less likely to be surrounded by other children who are like them. So they're less likely to be imprinting on other people who are like mommy. And, it's basically not a whole lot different from the approach to the rearing of Nazi children in Nazi Germany. And this is all done without consent. And in the case of my children, the government paid $1,194,000 to finalize the illegal adoption, which included tons of fraud and abuse. And like I said, I filed all the proper forms. I filed notarized documents, pictures, and recordings, which should have had my children's CPS case nullified and canceled immediately at the start. But no, instead they just kept coming back and attacking harder and harder because who's going to stop them? Nobody. My doctor, my OBGYN in Hanford, California, who was a foreigner, he even told me, he showed me the crazy and psychotic things that females were putting in my medical files. He gave me a copy of it, and he knew none of that shit was true, because he was right there looking at these hoes every day. That's how he knew that I didn't do none of that shit. He was right there. So he told me that these bitches, they do this to women all the time. They do it all the time. He said that no one's going to stop them. And it's true. For me, this problem started in North Dakota with Dr. Andrea Lays, who removed my clitoris and left behind the skin that used to cover it. And she's bullying and harassing me and locking my child into the system to be tracked and sent into CPS in any case I went to. After he was born, I was scheduled for surgery to prevent pregnancy. She canceled it. It was canceled. I was not allowed to have it. My life just continuously got worse from there with a lot of the false arrests, and just repeated bouts of homelessness. I'm on disability assistance now because my body was damaged up there in North Dakota. And All True Hospital, who Dr. Andrea Lays works for, they called my mother and told her that no law firm in any of the 50 contiguous states would take a case from me. And they probably got confused because my mother sounds extremely similar to me over the telephone. So with that said, you know, when I call upon careful review and judgment on behalf of myself and thousands of other mothers who have been victims to this kind of thing, you know, we deserve to be heard too. You know, not just the mothers on drugs prostituting themselves who got their kids back, but also those of us who were considered healthy and abused and assaulted and stripped of all of our human and constitutional rights. We deserve to be heard too. And in America's media, 9.999 times out of 10, we're not heard, and our stories are rejected intentionally. And when you do the math on the CAPTA program and the cash bonus for adoptions, yes, my 3 sons, they sold my children like as if I'm a fucking slave, sold them for $1,194,000. And I had a job as a lab tech. I had a nice stable home when my first child was born, and I was trying to get tubal ligation surgery to prevent pregnancy, which my doctor canceled. My doctor told me to my face that she knew my employers at one of my jobs personally. For people who do these things, it's not hard for them to create financial instability for us. You know, it's just that throughout this whole process of forced instability, my OBGYN in Hanford, California, he was the only person throughout this whole abusive process from start to finish who actually opened up my file and showed me and honestly told me that no one's going to stop these people. This isn't a real civilization. These people are not afraid of you. And their idea of love and light is that I'm supposed to just sit here, childless with no family, and on disability assistance, and just wait until I become an old woman, staring at the paint dry in some kind of state-run retirement home, wondering where my children ran off to, while one of their women is cared for, while one of their women is looked after. I'm supposed to just sit outdoors in a pissy wheelchair with no one to push me, or sit in a state-run home staring at the paint dry, while my children spend their income to support one of their women in old age, while my children intermarry with their daughters. That's what they call love and light. That's the future they want us to live. They want us to spend the rest of our living days paying for what they forced on us financially. I was not in poverty when this problem started. I was a lab tech. I was getting paid $17.86 an hour. I had a nice home. And even though I was forced out of my lab tech job, I still had enough income to maintain my home and had scheduled a surgery to prevent successive pregnancies, which they canceled because I could have handled my one child just fine by myself. I was being responsible, or was trying to be. I wasn't just dependent on welfare. You know, I had something that was taken from me at my lab tech job. The guy who trained me, He said that I finished my training in half the time of every person on the team, including the Asians. It took me half the time it took the Asian girls to learn the job. But when my mestizo hire manager and a white female hire manager took over and took me away from the better leaders who I was working under, they threw all that paperwork in the trash and claimed that I never learned my job when I had to leave out from under the individuals in the company who hired me. It's just straight savagery. I was 5-6 months pregnant, and instead of giving me maternity leave, my new man, because I was like 5 months pregnant, I only needed like 3-4 months maternity leave, and instead of giving me 3 or 4 months maternity leave, they forced me to do heavy lifting instead of making the men do it, and my stomach muscles tore open and popped like a grape. My pelvic bones separated, and they're still not together 5 years later. Some of my pelvic bone is permanently gone now. I was blocked from getting a workers' compensation claim because my doctors wouldn't report what was wrong with me and wouldn't record what was wrong with my lower body and my stomach in North Dakota where it started, and they wouldn't record it in California either. So here I was being forcibly blocked from having a nice, stable career, forcibly blocked from financial stability, forcibly blocked from workers' compensation claim, forcibly blocked from medical malpractice claims, forcibly blocked from civil rights lawsuits. Because again, just like All True Hospital told my mother, saying that no one would take my case in all 50 states. That's true. Oh God, I contacted so many law firms, and you can even see a lot of evidence of that in my email too, and not just my phone records. Just savagery, just straight savagery. I exhausted every possible option, and that wasn't enough because, like I said, the federal government paid $1,194,000 to make sure my children would be adopted out and never returned to me. That's what they paid to the state of California in Kings County. And also in regard to some things that were done without my consent via military, I was supposed to receive some kind of restitution from an account C. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. It's C90, then with some other digits in the middle, and the last 3 digits of the account number is 840. I was supposed to have been paid that money in September 2018. This is 2020. I'm in a hotel. I'm homeless. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I could have used that money to start a new life over. I could have used that money to try to make an attempt to get my stolen children back. But do I have it? No. Do I have a car? No. Instead, I just have breadcrumbs, from a tiny disability check and food stamps, which is helpful, but I could be doing much better. If I was compensated for all my troubles according to the laws of this land, I could live anywhere I want to and have a choice, and have stable transportation and have my kids and not have to worry about money. But here I am, I'm homeless. I'm temporarily in a hotel trying to figure out where I'm going to go. And like I said, I have been, there has been active blocking of my human and civil rights. And yes, I'm one of the more at-risk females out of the thousands of mothers considered healthy who have been subjected to this, because I'm one of the ones with the unidentifiable DNA, which was documented on my genetic testing that I had done. You know, the ones like me, it's like when it comes to our kids, all the rules go out the door. And this has been going on for decades. It's not new. They've been doing it. You know, people all over the world, they're protesting for Black Lives Matter. Okay, but throughout the many decades they've been doing this shit, have they been protesting on behalf of mothers considered healthy who are subjected to this shit? And no, they're not protesting it. You protested it in 2015 when you sent both a blizzard and a tropical storm simultaneously to America on Mother's Day weekend. You protested it, but as far as among human beings, has anybody ever mass protested all over the world what's being done to mothers? No.